You are listening to This is Oklahoma, hosted by Mike Hearn, telling stories of Oklahomans and those that have made it their home.
This podcast is presented by the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, telling Oklahoma story through its people since 1927. For more information on the Hall of Fame, go to www.oklahomahof.com and follow them on Instagram for daily updates at oklahomahof. What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of This is Oklahoma. Mike Hearn here, your host, back with another episode down at the Oklahoma Hall of Fame today in their wonderful theater room with Sabih Kalidy to talk about, everything that you do. A lot of people probably now just think that you sell Kias, right, and cars, but they've seen you around, they know your voice, they've heard the weird beards, funny stories on the radio, which I think are brilliant, and all that other good stuff. But there's a lot more to your story than just selling cars. So, we chatted when I reached out. You grew up in we were in Luton. We talked about eating Indian food and just kind of how much you miss Indian food and that UK kind of culture. But go back to the start. Where were you born and raised?
Born in Beirut, Lebanon.
Okay, so when you're born in Beirut in Lebanon, how long are you there before you kind of go to high school? Like, what's kind of that transition to ended up in the UK?
Yes, I left age 17, and I came to America.
Okay, so at 17, back then, what was high school like in Beirut and Lebanon?
I went to a private Christian school.
Okay.
So it's pretty similar to what we have here in America as high school.
Okay, yeah. And so it wasn't as big, I guess, of a cultural difference when you went to the UK?
That's correct.
Okay, so at that point in your time, you're 17, you leave. Do you have a scholarship? Do you have a university to go to in the UK? Do you at that time, do you know what your career path's going to be?
No, I did have a scholarship. I played soccer. Okay. And I went to schools here as an exchange student in the U.S.
Yeah.
And as I finished, and that's where my career ended me in the UK for medical school.
Okay, where's the love of soccer come from, or football for us?
It's a cheap sport back home, where you just go on the street or grab a road and play soccer and kind of build back up, and that's how it came back up.
Yeah, I do miss that. That's the one thing that, like the soccer culture or football for us, right? Soccer culture here is not the same as what it is. Even the atmosphere when you go to games, right? Like that's one thing I definitely miss from kind of the UK and European culture is just the atmosphere of soccer games.
Yes.
You can't replicate that here.
It's huge. It's pretty similar to the football here.
Yeah.
The amount of traction they get and the attention, soccer is the same. I can be watching TV and notice myself scrolling around the channel and see a soccer game and just attach and watch the whole game.
Yeah. What position were you when you played?
I played all of them.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So you just wanted to play.
Yes.
Okay. So at that point then, you just mentioned you came to the States first before you went to the UK. So you came as an exchange student here. Where in the States did you go?
First, for a short period, I ended up in Sioux Falls, South Dakota.
Okay.
Augustana College.
Glamorous.
Yes, right? Yes. And when the snow came, it was really hard. When you have 12 feet of snow, the first year was really tough.
Sounds awful to me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Then I ended up transferring to Central State and Oklahoma Christian.
Okay. Yeah.
To Oklahoma.
And then, so that's when then that's your transition then to Oklahoma.
Correct.
How do you leave? Where does the Luton part come in then?
Well, when I came intentionally to the U.S., I was hoping to attend medical school.
Okay.
So the goal was, as a future career, college education was something was pre-med or Bachelor of Science in Chemistry or Science, and then go to medical school. Okay. So that was the original intention was.
Yeah. But instead of staying here, you went back to the UK.
Correct.
And scholarship and just kind of there was an opportunity in the UK, let's go?
No scholarship. It was I came to Oklahoma and finished my schooling, and I gotten to support. I was self-support. I didn't have any funds available for me from my family, so I had to work odd jobs such as like Walmart and Sam's Wholesale Club and a gas station and a pizza place. So I worked at jobs as part-timers to be able to put myself through full-time through school. In the meantime, when I graduated, I started what I did on the side, buying and selling cars as well.
Okay.
That helped me kind of increase my cash flow.
Yeah.
And saved up some money, saved up $20,000, started the first car lot. And 7 years later, we sell to Smikla Chevrolet as part of the Bob Moore Group
okay.
for a lot of money.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you've always kind of had that, like, that entrepreneurial thing, because it didn't necessarily come just because you had wanted to. It came from a real need. You needed to do these odd jobs to put yourself through college.
Yes, it's a hunger.
Yeah.
Not only. First of all, I was getting paid only $3.35. That was the minimum wage at that time.
Yeah.
So it's not a whole lot of money. Kind of pushed me out of my comfort box to buy and sell a car,
Yeah.
to make the extra few $100s on the side, because it was needed for me to send back home
Gotcha.
to my family.
Okay.
So I was literally sending about $200 to $300 a month back home.
Yeah.
And that's what it took to support my family back home.
Yeah. A lot of people don't realize that stuff, right? They don't realize that, like, it might look like, you're working, you're doing odd jobs, you're raising money for yourself. They probably had no idea you're sending it home to family.
Yeah, they had no idea, and they don't understand it.
Yeah.
Even if you explained it, most people don't understand it. Unfortunately, I didn't come back from the background where most people here had. So I grew up in a war, and I knew how bad my family situation was, and it was needed for me to do what I needed to do and do it right. So I did. But the great thing about it is there's always negatives and positives.
Of course.
I've gained a lot of knowledge from it. And to be an entrepreneur, even on a smaller scale, you've always have to do the right thing and make people happy. And so I bought what I thought it was a quality car at that time, affordable.
Yeah.
I still invested money in it out of my own pocket, changing oil and putting new battery and tires. Rehabbed an older, dependable car, and I was able to sell for a little profit.
Yeah.
And that's kept me going. Well, I gained a lot of knowledge. It puts me in a car dealership.
Yeah.
A few years later, I sold it for a lot of money, and I became a multimillionaire, successful at age 27.
Yeah. There's one thing that I keep telling people, and people back home and immigrants definitely get this. People here forget it all the time. It's that the American dream is still alive. You're a perfect example of that, right? Coming here, putting yourself through college, working hard at it. And that's one lesson that comes through this podcast on a weekly basis, is that by working hard, you can achieve anything you want out in this country, compared to growing up where you did in Beirut, whereas the situation's not what it is here, and no matter how hard you work, it's a lot harder to do. You might not even been able to do what you've done here back home, right?
Yes, so much truth to this. I mean, America is definitely an easier country to be able to be successful. I think success is measured worldwide.
Yeah.
Your discipline and hard work and commitment and dedication is all needed to be the key elements for success. Definitely much more luck in having it accomplished here in America than other countries. Not saying that it can't happen in other countries, but America is much welcoming for that hunger to be successful.
Yeah. So it was always, from early on, it was always car business then?
Yes. I started in the car business, and Michael, there was... I kind of also got into real estate business, is because at that time we didn't have iPhones, and we didn't have Facebook, and my English was on a scale 1 to 10 or 4. And so my English professor had encouraged me to read the newspaper. As I was reading the newspaper and the columns in classifieds and everything else, I have learned about the real estate and homes for sale. And there was a program out there that the government put from the 80s collapse, changing the mortgage loans to non-qualifying assumable. So if you would have had a home loan, when the crash came in, the government said, you know what, I'm going to help you sell it, so the buyer can come in and didn't have to qualify for the loan and can assume it based on what we agree on small amount of an equity purchase. So I bought my first home was $4,000. It was the address 3025 Northwest 68, and then next day I signed the paperwork and sent them out, and the deed came in my name, and I assumed the loan, and I didn't have to qualify. That opened my eyes.
That's amazing. Can you imagine if you could do that now?
It really is. So you can't. Those loans don't exist anymore. But they were amazing. It opened up my eyes. It said, "Oh my gosh!" Overnight, I became a homeowner was down payment
For
under $5,000.
Yeah.
Under $5,000, and I own a home.
Yeah.
And so that really have helped me to start circling those ads when they came out. They weren't there often, but they existed.
Yeah.
You know, and every time the paper comes out in the morning, I was opening the paper and saving my little pennies and dollars I had to go in and buy the second home.
Oh,
so by the time I graduated from college, I've already have about 42 homes bought that way. And I became a landlord and renting them and getting a lease paper bought from, you know, Office Depot and handwrite it and just kind of self-taught everything.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's, I mean,
it really is amazing.
It is, because I mean, just talking about it out loud now, like that never happens anymore, and it probably will never happen again. But the fact that you can assume a loan, you know, you can negotiate, you can assume a loan, and then, you know, turn around and find, I mean, you probably found renters before you even bought homes, right? You'd built up a business to say people are coming to you. You knew that a home was going to close soon. Okay, I got a house coming in, you know, in 15 days. Do you need to rent it? Yes. Okay. I mean, can I take it down? You know, all of that, and you end up having 42 homes.
You're right. You're extremely correct, Michael. A great point, what you just said. You know, the fear always, if you lose, grow, you know, your fear grow. If you gain, your fear is less. You know, the first home I bought, it was an easy transaction. My second home I bought, I was really scared about renting it. Went, got a rent sign, put it in the yard. But I got 80 phone calls next day, you know, and I was making $50 extra per month on the home mortgage. $50 to me was a lot of money when you're making $335 an hour, right? Well, I started doing the math. If I own 10, that's an extra $500. If I own 20, extra $1,000. So I really have the amount of phone calls kind of overcame my fear, and it was just running just to create that extra down payment to buy the second home and the third and the fourth and vice versa.
When this is all happening and you kind of get in the rhythm of like, I understand this, you know, the business is moving, money seems to be very easy to make now because you've got your, you know, the ball is rolling. Are you waiting for someone to just pinch you and say, this is a dream, this is not real, because of how well it's going?
The dream, I still live the dream. I still need to be pinched to wake up from it. I'm very fortunate of what I have, and the blessings continue to add, and I never forget where I came from. So living the dream is, you don't want to wake up from this dream either today. It's a long dream, but the facts of it, what matters. I think I've learned to be able to, the big rewards out of it is when I called my family and I said I own my first home in such a short period. It's a shocking, because that typically doesn't happen back home. You know, the luck, the right timing, the knowledge I captured, it's more rewarding when you call your home and call your family and say, hey, Dad, you know, 3 years later, I'm in college. I own 42 homes. It's amazing. What are you doing? You know, what are you doing?
Were you able to bring your parents here to Oklahoma?
I did. I brought my father. He passed away here in Oklahoma years later. He came to visit, and I'm not a proud. The pride that I can't imagine telling you, Michael, and I put him in the car and drive and say, Dad, this is our home, and Dad, this is our home. You know, and it just is the success level of not so much the money, but it's more the success and the accomplishment out of it.
It's the fact that you have gone out and made something of the opportunities that you've been given on your own, and your life is not a waste, right? You're not just kind of pissing away something, right, with a little bit of success and going out every weekend and like, oh, I've made it. You know, you're continuing to build on that and kind of just live that life and continue, like you just said, to live that dream. And, you know, it's amazing what you've done. And like the beauty of this podcast is to tell people all about that story, because a lot of people don't know, you know, and I appreciate you coming down here to talk about that, because, you know, it is great, and there's so many lessons that people can learn from the things that you've done. Okay, things might not be different, right? But the principles are still the same. The principles can still be applied to any other business around, you know, that people are coming out of college or even coming out of high school now that are starting businesses and making hundreds of thousands of dollars on tech stuff or NFTs or whatever it is. So that's really cool that, you know, that you kind of have that background. And once you, I guess, established, you know, like they said, you know, you at 27, you're a millionaire. Where are you, like, take me to that time when you're 27, you've got success. obviously you didn't just sit back and enjoy it and retire, right? Like, why do you continue to press on and continue to grow businesses, and just like, what part of you wants to continue growing at that time?
Yeah, Michael, again, a great question. And I ask myself the same thing every day, because at the end of the day, whether you eat a steak or you eat a taco, your stomach can only handle so much food, right?
Yeah.
I had the same mattress for 12 years. I've lived in my same home for 16 years. At the end of the day, you don't need more, right? But I think the security, coming from an insecure background, that, you can have something and can be gone tomorrow.
Yeah.
It made me wanting to obtain more.
Okay.
It's really not the wealth out of it. It's more than, I've asked that myself all the time, when am I going to stop?
Yeah.
And I think, again, it's, I think about, my parents had a lot, and they woke up one day was nothing.
Yeah.
So, that is the motivation behind it.
Yeah. And also, I've said this in a previous podcast too, because you came here with so little and you always remember where you've come from and the background that you have, you are completely comfortable going back to that zero and starting again, right? There's no fear. And a lot of people start businesses and they're like, oh, but what if I fail? Well, because you've come from that humble beginning and you've worked all the way through it, you know, if someone were to take away everything from you tomorrow, you would be successful again because you've done it, right?
Well, not tomorrow, because I think my age right now might not allow me to have the same strength and the youth and the energy I had before.
Yeah.
No, I didn't think that way.
Yeah.
Like I didn't think about, if I lose everything, go back to 0.0. I didn't think that it was at 0.0 anymore.
Right.
But also I've looked at things a little bit different. Okay, so I didn't operate a restaurant where, it's exhausting. It's a lot of work. Everything is a lot of work, and anything you do. But I felt like I really got to realize that no matter what I do, that home is not going to go away.
Yeah.
That home is going to stay here. That tangible value of this property is here. And as I was buying homes, even these homes were changed through the recession value on mortgages. I've looked back on historically how much they were bought for, and I still bought them higher than they were originally sold for. So it kind of gave me a sequence of understanding that the formula of real estate, God only made so much land and so much real estate will go up.
It would make sense.
It would make sense. So I really didn't feel like I was taking so much risk.
Got you.
You know what I'm saying?
That makes sense. Yeah. Because the long-term hold of that would eventually make money if you had to sell it and cash flow something.
Correct. I think the risk was not to associate myself with the wrong people.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But not the drive and the direction I was going.
Yeah.
I didn't see it that way.
Okay. Around that time then, is there a lot of kind of just, like, it seems like the wild west of business back then. If you're buying a house for $4,000, there's a lot of other potential things that are going on that you don't want to get involved in. Is there any temptation and stuff? Or also, let me ask you this instead. When you're successful, people start coming to you with business ideas, right? Because you got money.
Correct.
Can you invest in this? Can you invest in that? Was that hard to turn people away? Because that was probably the first time someone had come to you and said, will you invest in something, right?
Yeah. No, it wasn't hard to turn away in investing. It was easy to tell someone I don't have knowledge in the product at all. And I don't feel I need to be in that position because I don't know. Knowledge, when you invest, you have to feel there's a connection between you and that investment you have to make. For an example, if you want to invest in a stock and for an example, Walmart is busy all the time. You walk in there and they're doing a great job, or Amazon, you order from Amazon. You feel like, that's a great company. You read about the company, about their financials and everything else. You say, I'm going to invest in the stock. It's the same thing when you invest in someone else. If you don't have knowledge in it, you can't blindly invest in it.
So you're successful at this point, right? You've got houses, you sold, you got plenty of houses, you're a millionaire, you've got, you sell, like you said, you get the cars going and then you sell to Chevrolet, right? As you sell the dealership to
Smickler Chevrolet. Which is part of the Bob Moore Group at that time.
Right. So you sell to them. I mean, like, you're 27 years old. A lot of people in that position would think, I'm going to go to the beach, I'm going to buy myself a nice car, a nice house, and then with my residual income coming in from my houses, I'm set. instead of doing that, you also do a lot more stuff, right? Because you wouldn't be here today talking to me. Like, let's go back, because we did gloss over the fact that you went to Luton. Tell me when that time is. That's not between high school and coming to the States. That's after you make all your money, right?
Correct. Michael, it's so funny you mentioned that, because the period of my success until age 27, I don't remember taking a vacation.
Yeah.
I just didn't know they existed. From my background, where I grew up, the vacation was not discussed.
Right.
We didn't know about them. So I've never really knew
Yeah.
that you take off and you go to Miami, or you go to Greece, or you go to Italy, or you go to New York. It just didn't happen. So I sold my dealership. I had a lot of money. All my debt is paid off. I had a nice big home on the golf course in Oak Tree at that time. Galardia didn't exist at that time. And I woke up, I'm thinking, this is the first time I wake up at 9 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
And I wake up and looking at the golf course and thinking, oh my goodness, what am I gonna do today? And why I get in the shower, I'm thinking, I didn't go to medical school.
Yeah.
Time to go to medical school. So that's where the idea started.
Yeah.
So I write up, I needed to go to medical school a little bit abroad, because knowing that I had what I had, and I might drop out for having what I have, that I think I can't be disciplined anymore.
Right.
So I contacted my bank. I told them that they have to set me a salary set up. I wrote St. Christopher College of Medicine in Luton. I got accepted as a student. I bought a $2,000 car in Luton.
Yeah.
I got a 1-bedroom, tiny apartment. I lived within my means like a student.
Right.
Exactly, because I knew if I would live the lavish lifestyle, I will drop out. Because there's a lot of discipline to go through medical school.
Yeah.
A lot of work.
Yeah.
So I kept my mouth shut of what I had as a background, and literally, just like the students get student loans and get money from their family, I was getting that allowance every month from my bank, which breaks me even. Literally. It literally breaks me even.
God, it's amazing. That's so good.
Yeah. Remember going out with the students and eating at on the street?
Yeah.
They have, in England have all these
so
places on the street. Yeah. And it was, they were scraping their dollars, or, pounds, or to buy a meal, $5, and I did the same thing. I'm like, I only have $8 to spend today, or $20 to spend today. So that really helped me be in disciplined situation.
And just went to follow, because you hadn't taken a day off, because you'd worked so hard, went until you got to the States. Like you said, you wake up one day, I'm going to go follow my dreams.
Yes.
And go. And did anybody find out that you're in medical school? Did anyone in your medical school class find out, like, who you were? Did they ever Google you and see, hang on, Sabih Bones, like...
Yes. It was not only a student, it was the president of the school. Yeah. So on the graduation, I would never forget. Dr. Leone was wearing a Gucci tie, and he bought me a Gucci tie to wear in the graduation. And he said, hey, we're wearing the same tie. We don't have the same financial background, but we're wearing the same tie. He did it on purpose to bring the point. But he kind of called me up. He flew from Florida. He was in Florida back to England, and he said, hey, we're going for dinner together, and asked me to invest in the medical school program. And we had a built relationship and a friendship, and to this point we're still in touch with a lot of my professors and all of everybody else,
because a lot of people graduate medical school with an obscene amount of debt, right?
Yes.
I highly doubt there's anyone like you that have come in after, a lot later in life, after being successful. You think, I'm just going to go put myself through med school, right?
Yes.
But also living it the way that you would have done if you were in college. That you lived college twice, right? You went to two different, through two different periods of your time, a decade apart. Like, that's, it's fascinating.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, I can't imagine like the times that you're. And being in med school, like especially in the UK, you've worked all day, you've studied all day, and then everyone's going out, at the student union, and like I said, buying cheap food and spending money on cheap drinks and stuff, and just that putting you in that culture a little later than a lot of students are. That must have been fascinating to watch.
Well, thank you. And the greatest thing is probably if this got broadcasted and my bank is watching, the same people still live in Edmond, they would know that the same bank used to send me my real estate report and all the payments came in. and all the balances in the bank, and the wire they send me for my allowance. So I was in communication with the bank early, periodically, getting documents and all that financial information. And they just couldn't understand the bankers, my bankers. They're still my bankers to this point. They couldn't understand why I went to medical school.
I bet they thought you were crazy, right?
At one point, I think I was crazy too.
Yeah, but I mean, the great part about it is, we don't know how long we're going to have on this earth, right? And for as long as we know, we get one shot at it. And the fact that you decided, most people, when they become a millionaire, they think, I've made it. I'm not going to work as hard as I have to get there. But you decided to go put yourself through, not only just go to university, you went to medical school, which is another level of going back to school, isn't it?
Yes, Michael, it really taught me a lot.
Yeah,
it really did. It taught me how much really I love the car business, and it also taught me how much really I love the home business.
Yeah,
you see what I'm saying?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, it was a dream
because you're not practicing as a doctor, right?
Right. It was a dream initially, and my objective to be, but what my passion was changed.
Yes.
And I built an empire from my passion.
Yeah.
And then when I went for my dream, I realized I really, this is great, but it showed how much I really loved what I did before. Yeah,
which clearly serves a purpose, right? There's nothing, it's all grass is always greener, right? When you get there and you're like, okay, I've done it.
Yes.
I know how it feels, I know how it likes, but I really, really enjoy what I was doing before. Let me go back to America and keep building my business. And one thing that kind of interests me also is, why stay in Oklahoma? Why, even if you have businesses here, did you decide to invest in other states and travel and maybe live in other states? Like, why be based here?
Great question. Thank you for asking that question, Michael. I'm a very average person. I require early sleep. I like to wake up early in the morning. I'm not into the club scene. Oklahoma has that calmness to it. I would go to New York. At that time, I was dating my wife. And I remember she told me one time, she said, you've never been to a club in New York, I'm going to take you to a club in New York. So I'm staying in the hotel. So I get ready to go to the club about 7 o'clock in the evening. And I didn't hear from her. So I called her about 7:30, said, Natalie, are we going to the club? She said, honey, it's 7:30. I'm like, okay. So she said, wait a little bit. So anyway, they start the clubbing at 2 o'clock in the morning. You know what I'm saying? So Oklahoma really
sunrises too, right?
All
night.
I've been one of the very few people always in the office early. And I like that. And I like to sleep early. So Oklahoma bring that environment to me. The traffic, I'm not crazy about moving in traffic, heavy traffic. The cost of living, the kindness of the people in Oklahoma, they're really kind. They really, really are. They couldn't understand when I went to New York and New Jersey to see my fiance, at that time my girlfriend, why I tell people hi to everybody. They thought it was weird. You walk in the mall, someone look at you, say hi. You have learned that from Oklahoma. And that's not typical you see in big cities. So the kindness of the people in Oklahoma, the welcoming I got in Oklahoma, my success is here in Oklahoma, and it's home. It became my home. I've never thought, when I used to travel, where I was at birth, the home that gave me birth, I felt I was not home. And when I came in the air in Oklahoma, I felt I was home. So it became home.
It's a special feeling. And I feel the same way. I've been here 10 years now. This is my 11th year. And it's hard to explain to others unless you're used to it, unless you've been here before, that, and I think people still think that Oklahoma is still a flyover state, and us Oklahomans now want them to think that because we don't want people to come in and ruin it, right?
Yes.
Especially over the last couple of years, talk about people coming from California. But that's really, really, really special to hear that it feels like home, and you just kind of grow to love it, and you built a business here, and a lot of people might have said, I built my business there, but let me go to Arizona or Miami or wherever and be in a nicer climate or whatever it is. The other thing I want to ask you though, obviously you love cars, right? You're
Correct.
A car guy. I mean, I saw the video you posted recently of your Urus that's for sale, which, a beautiful car, makes great noises, and you can fit 4 people in it, 5 at a push. Where does that passion for cars start? Like, where is that first kind of moment as a kid, wherever you were, that you see a fast car, you're like, wow, I want that? Where was that moment?
From growing up.
Okay.
My sister's older. She's older than me, and her husband at that time, when she got married, he had a Trans Am. So, and it's everything he had, he put in one car. Instead of owning a home and owning everything else, he just owned the car. Okay. So I've looked at the Trans Am and thinking, oh my gosh, this is so pretty. Speechless. When he'll pick me up, I just couldn't speak. I played with Matchbox cars all the time growing up, being in the war. So you have to kind of be inside the house. So you have to be on the streets from bombing and everything else. It just, the love of passion of cars just grew all the time. And I've never really thought I would have a nice car, you know, or an expensive car. I remember one of my cars that I bought at early age. It was an old beat up 6-7 colors 260Z Nissan, you know, and I've really dreamed about painting the car and dreamed about putting big tires and wheels on it and changing the exhaust. I just never thought this was a dream. That car was a dream. I never thought I would ever get into a Porsche or Ferrari or Lamborghinis or any of those cars or McLarens. You know,
So when was that first time that, you know, when you were successful, what was your first kind of big boy, I'm going to treat myself purchase?
Well, when I was in college and buying and selling cars, I, like everything else, I've enhanced my quality and my taste, and I started buying expensive cars and selling expensive cars. I wasn't scared of it. I became where I sold a lot of Porsches, and I got to drive those Porsches. So I've gotten from the 944 to the 944 Turbo, the 911, 911 Turbo, 911 Targa, 930, you know, and 928, and I can name them. I became almost like the person to go to from dealers to ask you about a Porsche, the knowledge. So I've flipped a lot of Porsches and sold a lot of Porsches, but it was never mine. It was the intention, I have to make money out of the car.
It was a business acquisition.
It was a business acquisition. So my first car, I would have to say it was by surprise. I go to Tulsa, I'm delivering a Porsche. I made my money. A dealership bought a Porsche from me. It was just a favor for the dealership. I run into this guy has a Ferrari. And the first time I lay my eyes on really Ferrari one-on-one in person, and I really fell in love with it. 3 weeks later, I'm in Washington Ferrari picking one up, and it just graduated to Ferrari, and that was my first car. And then from a Ferrari to another one, and so
that's how they get you, don't they? It's like, we entice you with this one, and then they keep calling you. So I had a friend of mine back in Wales. Every time that his Ferrari would go in for a service, they'd give him a loaner of the newer model, right? And then he'd always say, well, I can't give this back, I've got to take that one, you know. But they're beautiful cars, they sound amazing. You know, Resale Red is a real thing, right? You know, if you get one in red. But it's, I mean, a lot of people see, you know, that know of you around town. You know, you got a beautiful Rolls Royce, which a lot of people, I think they're perfect in the States because they're so big, right? And the roads are so big here. Can you imagine driving that through the streets of Luton back home? You'd probably be scared to drive it through Luton, right? With the size of it and how beautiful it is.
I'll tell you one thing, that you get really to appreciate other countries' a trend, and thinking out of the box. And one of the things you asked me a question earlier about, have you ever had a fear of going to 0.0? When I have gotten into playing with inexpensive cars, I've always have taught myself, if a Porsche can survive in any economy, right? The cycle coming down and up, and so is Mercedes, and so is Lamborghinis, and so why would I not? So, you know, because these cars are very expensive, and when we have a down market or collapse in the economy, how can they sell a $500,000 car, right? And they survived, and they maintained a huge presence. So I think that was one of the things that also have motivated me or boosted me not to feel the fear that I'm gonna fall. You know,
that makes a lot of sense.
It's great to have all that. Like I told you, the blessings is great, and I can't count my blessings.
Do you collect? Do you have a collection? Do you have kind of a warehouse somewhere that you collect cars, or do you always have that mentality of, I'm going to keep it for a little bit and I'm just going to sell it, because you've always done that?
I did before. I have few cars that I own. I like McLarens, and I like my Rolls, and we got a G-Wagon, and, you know, we got a little few cars, but I got I like the new technology all the time.
Yeah.
So I chase more the newer cars than I chase older cars.
Okay. And the good thing is, if you're loyal to these dealerships, you get those phone calls, don't you? Because there's a lot of people listening that might not know that, you can't just walk into a Ferrari dealership and buy, a 458 Speciale, right? You've got to buy a few to have the allocation to be asked, do you want to buy this car?
That's correct.
And loyalty is a great thing, especially in the higher end dealership models. But yeah, new technology on cars, I mean,
phenomenal.
It's scary how good they are, and how fast you are legally allowed. I mean, you're not legally allowed to drive crazy fast, but how fast these cars will go on a road,
and how safe now,
it's crazy.
And all the sensors and computers and everything, technology, chips and everything else. Yeah. I favor the new technology than older technology.
So moving to present day, then obviously you have the Kia dealership. People listen to you. They hear the ads on the radio, and they can drive by the dealership. What's life like now? What are you doing now? What are your business acquisitions now? I know you mentioned earlier things are slowing down a little bit because you're getting a little older, pace of life. You can actually, it's about time you take some days off. You're allowed to, right? Yeah. You're justifying it. What's life like now? Like, are you doing kind of still working, still showing up at the dealership every day, or just kind of taking a backseat?
Yeah. Well, your mindset is different now than it was when you started.
Yeah.
And the purchases that you make right now are different than purchases you make in the past. So, for example, a small house in the past would have been a great investment. Now, that house might not be as great investment. So your taste changes, and also your knowledge changes, and your experience changes, and the way you look at things changes. So the dealership is run by General Manager Corey Suter, that is sitting watching us right now.
He's doing great work at the camera right now. Thank you, Corey.
and also is known as Weird Beard.
Yes.
And he's done a great job.
Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, because of Corey, we're ranking #1 customer service, one of the highest customer service, and then we're #1 almost every month in sales.
Yeah.
We have the largest inventory in town at this point when there's shortages. Our employees are top notch. His expectations are above and beyond most dealerships. So we get high reviews on Facebook. Our presence on the marketing, our billboards all over town. We have a huge presence as a dealership, although we only one store, but we sell more than most stores in town. So the dealership is not run by me. The homes, we have giant amount of real estate. We carry commercial properties, shopping centers, freestanding units like KFCs, Starbucks, T-Mobiles, Burger Kings. So we are the landlords of big boxes. We also have office buildings, but we also have hundreds and hundreds of rental homes. So fortunate enough, that company is not run by me either. And then we have diversified into a finance company that is done really, really well and got really, really big. It has its own attorneys and the director and staff and senior collectors and all that stuff. And fortunately also, it's not run by me. So I have put all my efforts right now is to be able to obtain another financial institution that is on a bigger scale level. And that's our goal, is to be able by year end this year to qualify of able to own a financial institution in Oklahoma City.
I mean, you've done a great job of diversifying that portfolio, because it doesn't matter if something's going to be down, the other one's going to be up, you're going to pretty be level all the way through, and that's the investing 101 right there, right? It's just make sure you got a diverse platform. But that's really neat. One thing you mentioned is you used to live out at Oak Tree and now you live at Gladia. Are you a golfer?
I don't golf.
No,
it's one of the hobbies I have not picked up. It just seems like to me a lot of walking and a lot of shooting the ball and everything. I don't golf. But I do live on the golf course, and I have a membership at the country club and the golf, but I don't golf.
It's a big headache. I'm a golfer since I could walk pretty much. And I mean, I love doing it. I'm glad I got into it from such a young age because it's less of a headache now.
Yeah.
I can't imagine trying to start again. It's one of the hardest sports, but waking up to a beautiful golf course view in the morning is a nice thing to have.
It really is. It's like I told you, I've never thought I'll be here today, where I'm at, the blessings. But I can tell you, if I have to give an advice to anyone, every career is difficult. Whether if you have a restaurant or real estate or car business or whatever it is, you've got to have to say, this is what I want. This is my passion. And I want to be unique at it and do the best job and be dedicated and please people. At the end of the day, it has to be fairness. You have to walk away happy and the customer has to walk away happy, right? And one of them is not happy, it's not a fair deal. So the concept of not being greedy also, if you're too greedy and you start being greedy, you're not going to be successful.
Yeah, there's, you were given a perfect example before we started recording of just the rental rates, right? Can you reshare what you just said to Corey earlier before we were talking about to that point of not being greedy?
Yes, I as a matter of fact, one of the things I have when I hired Corey and Corey joined us is we made a promise to each other. I said, Corey, I want you to make me a promise and I want to make the same promise to you. And he said, what is this to be? I said, I want you to promise me that you will never be greedy. And I want to promise you that I will never be greedy. And if I become greedy, you got to stop me and say, Sabih, remember the promise. And if you start to be greedy, I want to stop you and say, remember our promise. And it really is. We pay a lot of money for our cars and we price them really, really affordable. We have a small margin of profit. As a matter of fact, Michael, sometimes we lose money on some of these cars. But we sell a lot of cars and we're happy. The end results is very rewarding and great results. Even in the homes, when I started investing in the homes, I wanted to make sure, because I'm a one-man show, I didn't have help. I wanted to make sure that person that rents my home or the family stays for a long time. So if the houses, similar homes, were bringing $1,200 or $1,300 or $1,400 a month, I was renting them for $750 a month. And people stayed 5 or 6 or 7 years. So it made me not to have the headache and the stress and all that stuff, because when they move out, you have to go back and refresh the home, right? And I didn't have to because they were living in the home.
The headache and the stress is definitely worth that margin of $200-$300, right?
You're right. It really is.
It's because you're right. When you start getting greedy and someone else sees a deal, it's they might think, I'm moving, I'm not dealing with this. And as a tenant, having a great landlord as a tenant is one of the blessings in life, right? If you got someone, if you're a renter and the last thing you want is your landlord to be a pain in the ass and always there, hounding you for rent money, or like, hey, it's going up every year, and it's not a good situation to be in. But so one thing we haven't touched on, you've been here long enough. You must, family and a family in the business. Like, how do they see it, and some of your weird quirks? What do they think about all that stuff?
Yeah, I'm blessed. I married Natalie, my wife. We've been together through 21 years. And extremely kind person, extremely supportive. We're blessed with 2 kids. Salem is 15. He goes to Cassidy. And Selma, she's 12 and also goes to Cassidy. And then we also have a dog, German Shepherd Storm, and he's at work today. My family not involved at work, but they're very supportive. So supportive such as if they were driving as a family together and they see a Kalidy car that has a logo, and we see a lot of those daily, they're all over town. And it can be without the excitement every time. I mean, we can be on the road for 20, 30 minutes and there's 20 cars and they get the same excitement on every car. Kalidy car. So they're supportive of Corey. They love Corey. He's doing a great job. They're supportive of our real estate. They see our boards everywhere. As a matter of fact, they've done a great job joining us on the radio. So Selma is on the radio, Salem is on the radio, Natalie's on the radio. And Corey and I always try to bring the family into more fun part than, being who's the boss, I'm the boss. You know what I'm saying? So Corey and I have that little fun together that we really enjoy working with together at the office and the dealership. And it reflects on the family as well. that when we bring them in for the radio channels and commercials. But wife and 2 kids and a dog, a lot of friends, a lot of great friends and support. Oklahoma is home for Natalie and for Salem and Selma, so is for Storm and for myself.
Yeah. So that's really cool. Like that's, it's great that, look, because I know friends of mine who their family own a dealership and the entire family works in the dealership.
Yeah.
And for me, like going to work with my parents or my uncles or my cousins, I mean, that doesn't make family time special to me, like, I mean, they make it work. They've done it for for a long time. But when I look at it, I'm thinking, if I had to go to work with my family every day, going to a birthday party or going to something else, it doesn't seem as special. But the good thing, with not having the family involved is that you do get to separate that family time and having the kids still kind of young. When they see the sticker, Kalidy sticker, that pride and that family name, that's one thing that I think that, not that Americans don't take pride in their family name, but as immigrants, we really, really kind of latch on to your family name.
It really is.
Right?
And there's one more thing, Michael. I didn't want my family involved for another reason, is I want my kids to be their own superstars and shine on their own. I wanted to be their own. I want them to do what they love most. Yeah. And they'll feel it at one point. I don't want it to be an inheritance, a pass on. Yeah. That dad gave it to us and we don't like it. Yeah. So I tell my kids all the time, a great example is Waste Connection. It's the garbage company, and it's on the public stock exchange. So it started with one guy cleaning a parking lot and got so big. So the idea is whether it's trash that smells so good at one point and becomes on the stock market, or a real estate, home, or cars, I want you to, or art, or teaching, or medicine, or a nurse, or pharmacist, or whatever it is, or IT. I want them to do what they like most. And at one point, I'm doing this for the family, but they have to come up with their own passion.
Yeah. That's I mean, it's a great way to put it, because you're right. There's nothing worse than growing up as a kid in a family business thinking, I don't want the pressure to take it over. I kind of want to do my own thing. And that there's pros and cons of that for sure. One thing that we haven't talked about, what do you like doing for fun? Just random. I mean, obviously you love cars and real estate, but is there anything you just kind of like love to read? You mentioned art. What stuff do you do that's just like, when you're on your quiet time, you just kind of gravitate to?
Yes. I like to go to the gym. So I go daily to the gym. I like swimming. Love reading. I'm a junkie reader. Okay. I play with computer chess all the time, even though Corey sometimes beats me. Okay. I like to be around the family. Wife, we always have split before COVID. It's changed a little bit with COVID, but before we used to, where Natalie and I will have a Friday date together. We just wear jeans, go out, hold hands, watch a movie, eat popcorn, hot dogs, whatever it is. Saturday is we go out with about 4 or 5 couples at night. Okay. And then Sunday is always a family day where I have to cook breakfast at home, and I'll have the kids and their friends. It's just all family together. So I like to be around my family. I like to enhance people's lives. I'm very, very friendly. It's almost a little weird friendly, but I love people. Yeah. And that's what I don't want to change, and that's how I am. But I like to relax too. Yeah. Because when your mind is running all the time, sometimes you need to come back home and relax. I like to go out with my friends and have a drink. So there's not much I don't like. I like a lot of things. Yeah. As long as it involves people, I love it.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense. It also makes sense that you like swimming, because that's just quiet time.
Yes. Yes.
And swimming's not easy. I'm terrible at swimming. First time I jumped to the 25-meter pool, I was like, I can do a couple of laps, and I was gassed. I did one down and back. But yeah, it makes a lot of sense. That's really cool stuff. You mentioned cooking as well. What's something tying back to your heritage that you cook for the family?
Yes. When Natalie and I had our kids, I used to make Lebanese breakfast on Sunday, and Salem and Selma will come in and barely will taste it and didn't like it, and they hated it. And I kept doing it every Sunday. And Nellie says, what's the purpose of doing it when they don't eat it? And I say, well, they'll take one bite today, and they'll take one bite next time, 2 bites and 3 bites. And now if we don't make it, they get upset.
They get upset.
So our Lebanese cuisine is worldwide known. Hummus is part of our cuisine. Tabbouleh, cabbage rolls, grape leaves, baklava, So, but making our Lebanese breakfast, it became a culture. Natalie have left in Miami yesterday, and Selma, and she had catered Lebanese food for us. And I saw my son getting up 2-3 times at night and getting it out of the refrigerator and eating it. It's good that he can eat all the American food and the Chinese food and Italian food and everything, but also love his food, the Lebanese food.
And have that reminder of like where you came from.
This is homeland.
Right? This is homeland. Yeah. That's special. Finishing up, I want to thank Wyatt for putting this together, because Wyatt's a friend of yours.
I love Wyatt.
Wyatt, I now work with Wyatt and for Wyatt. So I want to thank Wyatt Poindexter for putting this together and making this possible. And obviously the Oklahoma Hall of Fame for hosting us, because this is a beautiful venue.
Beautiful.
Corey, thanks for playing the cameraman today. I appreciate that. But again, thank you so much for coming down. This really means a lot.
Thank you. I want to thank you for your time.
Appreciate it.
And I want to tell you, welcome to Oklahoma.
Thank you.
I know you've been here 11 years. I also want to tell you that you have a friend for life.
Thank you.
With me. My door is wide open. And I really, in that 1 hour, I saw a beautiful man in front of me, and very intelligent, very smart, very kind.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for adding to Oklahoma yourself. And I can't thank you enough for this interview.
Awesome. I really appreciate that. For people listening, I'll put the description to the website, the Kalidy here website, and any other links that you'd like me to point them to. But thank you so much for your time. Enjoy your weekend. Go say hello to Storm. Pick him up from the dealership. And what an appropriate dog name for being in Oklahoma. I love that. And yeah, really wish you a great weekend. And thank you again for being on the podcast.
Likewise.
And for people listening, we'll catch you next episode. Cheers.
Thank you.
This podcast is presented by the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, telling Oklahoma story through its people since 1927. For more information on the Hall of Fame, go to www.oklahomahof.com and follow them on Instagram for daily updates at oklahomahof.
Thank you for listening. We are inspired by those around us and hope that you are too. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review so we can keep telling your stories. For more great Oklahoma content, follow This Is Oklahoma on Facebook and Instagram.